Hi, everybody. This is Dee with the CSI Project, and you're listening to this week's podcast. And I am speaking to Melissa. She is with the blog IStillLoveYou.com. Actually, it's melissaesplin.com. And the reason why I chose her today is because she is not only a craft blogger, but she takes great pictures for her blog, and she has a lot of good information on how to do that. A lot of tips on how to take great photos and put them on your blog, and great tips on cameras and what you should do for any blogger, no matter at what stage you are in. These tips will work for you.
The light that comes into your house. I shoot a lot inside, and I feel like I'm pretty lucky. We have a pretty well lit house. My studio is actually east facing, and from what I understand, like for photographers, south facing windows and west facing windows are more ideal because they get more light throughout the year. Especially like I'm in Utah. You're in the northern hemisphere, like in the northern part of the hemisphere. So you don't get as consistent light during the winter. So, but I just kind of time my pictures and make sure that I can have that section of day blocked out. And you know, like when we've moved like I don't know 8 times in the last 6 years. We've moved a lot. So with each house, it's been a new setup. And so I have to go through each of the rooms of the house and I think, okay, where's the lighting coming from? How is the light reflecting in the room? And what times of day is the light actually coming into the room? And you don't really want direct sunlight. It's fine. And with direct sunlight, like I've dealt with that a lot. I just put up white curtains so that it kind of softens the light that's coming in, and it keeps it true white. You want to make the light that comes through your house as white as possible because white fosters light. And in my current setup now, I actually painted my entire studio white so that all the light that comes in that room just bounces off the white walls. And you get better color, you can get better light. So so that kind of that helps, and you're not being forced to use high ISOs or like the dim setting on your point and shoot or the flash and some other cameras. You can actually, it gives you a lot bigger window to work with as far as like the time of day and light that comes through your room. And
Right.
Even if you don't have natural light or a whole lot of natural light, if you have some sort of setup where there is lots of white, you can manipulate afterwards in Photoshop and create a look that makes you feel like it was shot in natural light. That's the thing. You want everything to be true white as possible. And that's one of the biggest issues that I've found with craft blogs. And it's mostly sewing blogs or craft blogs that have sewing tutorials, because you have a lot of pictures of like the sewing machine with the needle.
Right.
And I usually avoid those pictures because oftentimes you can't really tell what's going on with the tutorial, but that's a whole different thing. But those light bulbs in the machines, it's a tungsten light, so it's very yellow, and so you don't necessarily get good light. And even if you just take a picture there, if you have to take a picture there, take a picture and then you manipulate it in Photoshop. I actually have a YouTube tutorial on how to get good white balance.
Oh, okay.
So for like tricky situations like that, if you have like a white point in any of your photos, like just like a true white point, so even like shoot a test picture with a white card in there. not like a flimsy piece of copy paper, but like a card, like a cardstock card. You put that in there, you take a picture, and then you take the rest of your pictures. So you have that photo to kind of go off of, and you can do the correct white balance on that photo, and then you can batch to the rest of the photos. So they all look consistent, and they all kind of have a white cast on them instead of a yellow cast or a blue cast. And I don't mess with white balances, like white balance presets on cameras. And I feel like Canon brand does white balance presets way better than Nikon does. But yeah, I do. I actually have a Kelvin setting on my camera, so I can set the white balance manually, and you like put a degree, and that's kind of it's kind of an advanced thing. But I think the easiest way to get into like the white balance and getting your correct white balance is just putting a white card or having just some sort of true white point in each of your photos. And it doesn't have to be in one of the finished photos that you publish on your blog, but it has to be at least one of the photos that you can, so you can batch the rest of them the same. If that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, that does make sense.
So,
yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but and also too, for people out there that may not have Photoshop, I know there's programs that you can get online and they're free. They may not do as good as Photoshop, but would you suggest doing those programs if you don't have Photoshop?
I'm not entirely familiar with those programs, so I don't know if they have white balance features in there. I would assume so, because it's a pretty basic Photoshop thing. I know Photoshop Elements has white balance, and iPhoto has white balance, and Lightroom has white balance. Lightroom is great if somebody is a blogger and they're looking to just invest in some sort of program. Lightroom is great, and you can go on eBay and you can get an old version, like not the newest version, but the one before it, for pretty inexpensive. You can even do this with Photoshop and Photoshop Elements. So you'd save like, I don't know, 20, 50 bucks, getting it on eBay, getting the slightly older version. And, Lightroom doesn't necessarily have like the text editing capabilities that Photoshop and Photoshop Elements do. Yeah. But you can batch edit like the color and the exposure and the brightness and all of that jazz so quickly with like tons of pictures. And that's the thing, like most craft bloggers, you're dealing with like 50 to 100 pictures. Maybe you're not going to use all of them on your blog, but you're going to be taking a ton of pictures for each tutorial. So it's nice to be able to just select, click, you've got it all batched. Whereas like Photoshop Elements, it's not quite as seamless. So it just kind of depends upon what you're looking to get out of it. I know Picnic was great. It was free and online, but it's no longer available. I want to say like there was like some Get something or other that's like a new site that has some sort of photo editing capabilities, but I don't remember the name. I think if you're a blogger and you're serious about blogging, you need to invest in your own program. And if you don't, you need to at least donate to the programs that are being offered for free, because you're essentially, especially if you're making money off of your blog, you're making money off of their free program. You should be supporting them.
Right.
So that's a whole other ballgame. But
yeah. I agree though, because I have Photoshop, and I agree that it just makes the quality of your images, and if you, like you're saying, if you're a serious blogger, I think it is a good investment. And it does take
Oh yeah.
time learning it. And I think that's
Yeah.
kind of where people get, oh, I have to learn that. It does take time learning it. But I think that
But there are
overall,
so many great resources for learning
right.
it out there. So
I think
many
there's
great
a book,
resources like Nicole's
um,
classes. You've got books. You've got
right,
lynda.com. I mean, pretty much for every learning style, you've got something to teach you Photoshop.
right.
So
And I
it's
think,
definitely worth it. And it's way cheaper to buy Photoshop than it is to buy a really nice camera.
exactly, exactly. And like you're saying, you can just use a point and shoot camera. It doesn't have to be, you know, whatever, Nikon, whatever. I think sometimes bloggers do get, in fact, I know they do because I've had friends say this to me. They do get intimidated by the big cameras, the big nice cameras, and they say, "Oh, I don't have one of those," and so I don't take good photos. But I think it is good to point out that even if you have one of those cameras, Photoshop helps you, or um,
Oh
like you're
yeah.
saying, those online programs like it used to be Picnic, those can help you. And so I do know that some people get intimidated at first, but that's what I want people to realize is that you don't have to be intimidated by it,
Oh
just
yeah.
because
Yeah. It's
you think that's what you have to have. You don't have to have that.
yeah. Well, and I feel like with sort of the blogging community in general, and just the internet, everything is digested so quickly and everybody moves on to the next thing so quickly that like the learning curve of a big camera or Photoshop or a new program really throws people off because there's just like, you've got to learn it fast. And there's really no pressure to learn it fast. I mean, you learn the basics and you just experiment. You experiment and maybe, 10 minutes here, 30 minutes there. Give it a few months or a year and you'll be just fine. You'll be really you'll be comfortable enough to get some really good results with your photos.
Right.
And I think the investment of time people are put off by just because of how easily digestible the internet is as a whole.
Right. I think so too. And I think, you're right. It happens so quickly. You see something, even if you see something maybe on Pinterest, and that's another thing about Pinterest is putting the best photo out there because, you want people to see the best photo there is. And so I know that a lot of some of the program or some of the tutorials I looked on for Pinterest on how to advertise your blog on Pinterest and that kind of thing is they say to use those photo editors like Photoshop, to put the title of the project onto your picture, and that's really important to do because it catches people's attention. And a program like Photoshop does that for you. So I think a lot of people have questions on that. How do I add a title so that it can go on Pinterest and get noticed? And I think you're right. It all goes back to Photoshop, and it all goes back to and also putting your watermark on it.
Oh yeah, I go back and forth about the watermark thing. With I don't put it on my images, mostly because I'm a designer and I usually end up changing my blog design every year. And so I'm like, why put a watermark on it when it's going to be outdated in, 6 months to a year? So I usually don't. But it is nice to have something on there because attribution isn't always guaranteed. And it's a frustrating thing. It is what it is. The internet's still so new. The blogging world is still so new. But it just doesn't happen. People don't understand it. Like, they won't plagiarize on their papers at school, but they'll take an image and basically claim that it's theirs,
Right.
So yeah, putting a watermark is great. putting it in a good spot is great, not front and center in the middle over the descriptive image, but you know, off to the side, you know, next, like in the bokeh or, you know, the background or whatever. That's great. But that's, again, like, that kind of bleeds into the whole design aspect and not necessarily the photography aspect of blogging. But yeah, what would you say is your main demographic? Like, who are the people that are reading your blog?
Mine is, let's see, I go from 18 to 40, I think is what my stats told me. And because it is such an eclectic, because it's a different challenge every week. So one week, the challenge may not hit someone maybe in their 40s, but one week it may hit someone more in their, you know, it really just varies on the challenges. And what I try to do is I try to have challenges that fit everybody. Sometimes, you know, I don't just stick with crafts, because I do think that even though it is a craft challenge, I do think that I like to incorporate other things, because it is just basically inspiring you in your everyday life, to create, share, and inspire. So I try to mix it up so I can hit everybody, and it's not just, you know, the craft blogger, the DIY, or the food bloggers, or the fashion bloggers, so I try to incorporate a whole bunch of different things, and you know, basically to expose people to a new way, you know. So it's not just one thing, and that's why we're doing photography, because that's something that a lot of people have questions about, when it comes to blogging and photography combined. A lot of people just have questions about it, and they're not getting answers in, you know, easily. And so that's why photography is this week, because I want to kind of answer those questions for people. And you know, and different aspects reach people, and I think of different ages. You know, your Pinterest kind of reaches, you know, it seems like everybody's on Pinterest. But like Twitter seems to be kind of a younger demographic. Facebook, you know, so it really just varies on who is catching me where, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as far as like photography and the blog aspect goes, you know, just really learning the camera, reading the manual, and having some sort of editor, because one of the things that I find that's really off-putting from, you know, when I find a new blog is the fact is load time. How long does it take for my computer, which is a super fast computer and plugged directly into the Ethernet? How long does it take for a site to load? If a site takes a minute and a half to load, I'm done.
Right.
I'm totally done. And the reason why? Because these people aren't using photo editing programs to save for web. They're uploading 2 to 7 megabyte pictures, and they're posting them on their blog. So my machine has to load 4 megabytes in order for me to see the image. And that's really off-putting. People need to start saving for web. And the nice thing is, if you do save for web, that protects your hide from people stealing your work, because it is, you know, my blog width is 500 pixels wide. Eventually, I'll be widening it out to 550, but my images are all saved to 550 pixels wide. It is that wide, and that's it.
Right.
So for me, if I'm doing like artistic photography, people aren't going to take that image and print it out and try and sell it. or if I'm doing calligraphy or something, they're not gonna be able to make any physical, tangible product out of my image. It's just for web, and it's just for that application. So it cuts down on a lot of theft. So and people from around the world, they can access my site so fast.
Right.
My site takes seconds to load because all my images are in kilobytes, not megabytes. And they're under, like, most of them are between like 50 to 200 kilobytes, which is really small compared to like a 4 megabyte image. It's going to load so fast. People are going to get their image, they're going to see their information, they're not going to get bored. That's, you need to take pictures that load fast and that have detail in them. Not too much, but just enough to communicate.
Right.
And with the craft blogging specifically, I find that I take a lot of they're not artistic images. They're, straightforward, or maybe the slight angle, and they're just showing the detail, as descriptively as possible in as much light as possible so people can see exactly what's going on. They can, my goal is for somebody to be able to get something creative out of my blog, even if they can't understand the language that I blog in. So,
right.
And that's been great. A lot of people from Hungary, France, they can read there's Google Translate, which is great, but that only gets you so far. But if you have good descriptive images, you don't need a language. It's just, there you go. It's right out there. It's easily digestible. You want to really take photos for the lowest common denominator. Somebody who's just barely getting into crafting, feels intimidated, and feels like, I don't know if I can do this. But if they see a descriptive image, they're like, okay, yeah, I think I can do that. That makes sense. Then people are going to be more likely to do it. They're going to be more likely to come back and read your blog and do more things. And isn't that the goal for us crafty bloggers? We want to spread the creativity.
Right.
So having good photos really helps. It acts as like a missionary for your blog.
Right.
So, like, you can do this, come back.
Right.
And tell your friends. So.
Right, and share. And a lot of bloggers ask this question. I was at a blogging conference a couple of weeks ago, and this came up too. But how many, it seems to go back and forth. It depends on what blogger you are, but how many, when you're doing a tutorial, what is a good amount of photos to use? And what is just way too much, in your opinion?
I feel like it needs to be one photo per process. So, I don't mind doing long, like if it's more than 20 images, I'm lost, I'm done. Unless they're really beautiful images. But one photo per process. I found a few bloggers doing multiple photos per process. And it looks like this here and this here. Sometimes that just gets me confused and you get disoriented. Try to find a way to describe that one process in one photo.
Right.
And vice versa, like to have the description within one process. So every time I change something, I take a photo. Every time I change something, I take a photo. And sometimes, I'm finding more and more, and even with my own blog, that like DIY craft and design bloggers are doing very simple tutorials. Tutorials that really have been done like for years.
Yeah.
And like I did glass etching like 5 years ago, and there were tons of glass etching tutorials 5 years ago, but there are even more glass etching tutorials now. And it's such a simple, basic process. And I'm finding a lot of bloggers are and again, like I'm putting myself in this ring too, that it's daunting to make a more complicated tutorial because you have to take more pictures. And that is when I suggest moving to video, because there are tutorials that are better explained in a video. And maybe it's tough, like it is tougher to do a tutorial with a video.
Right.
But like a couple of years ago, I figured out how to do the magic braid, where you've got like a leather piece where both ends, top and bottom, are connected, and you braid it.
Right.
And it seems impossible, but I figured it out while watching an episode of House. Like I figured it out. I'm like, okay, this is actually pretty easy, but I don't know how to describe it. I ended up doing a video, and that, like, I did. And if you can't do a video, do an animated GIF. An animated GIF, again, like you need to have Photoshop in order to do an animated GIF. They're so easy to do, so easy. You know, maybe even easier than a video, because you don't necessarily have the pressure of talking during the video, editing the video. It's just photos that move. But with some of those more complicated tutorials, sometimes, you know, just basically doing stop motion of the tutorial helps explain that in fewer images than static photos, if that makes any sense.
Right. Right. I agree, and I think that the video blogging is actually becoming more popular, and it's actually become, the way to go. It seems like nowadays, I think a lot of people are realizing that it's easier to tell how to do something if it is done on video, and a lot of blogs are moving towards that, and which I think is great, because and especially for people who are visual learners too, that people learn differently, and some people learn better by watching and not just reading. It's like getting something in a box and you have to put it together, and all they give you is instructions. Some people can't even do that.
Well, in a video also humanizes the person behind the images, the person behind the blog.
Right.
You know, and that, again, it's making things look doable. It's helping other people do things.
Right.
That's really what we do. And it's great that the technology is making it easier and easier for us to do that and to like tap into that method of teaching.
Right. I think, that is true. And I'm glad that it's going in that direction. I'm glad more people are doing that. And because it really does help. It helps like really what we're trying to do. Obviously, we're trying to create and share, and which inspires other people. And I think that the craft world is doing that. So, like, I hope people go more towards that and start doing that. Because, you're right. Sometimes it's hard to follow a tutorial, or even for the person who is making it, it's hard to explain it just by writing. I know sometimes, I struggle with that. How do I explain this, And that's why I like doing podcasts, because I can talk about things, like talk about photography. If I were to write a blog post or have somebody write a blog post about it, well, it doesn't have the same effect. And so I think the podcast does help that. And also, I try to, at least on the CSI project, I really work towards making a craft community, and not just a blog, but a craft community, and somewhere we can all go and ask questions and get ideas from one another, and of course challenges, and challenging one another, and making that more of a conversation and not just going to each other's blogs and looking. We're actually, like you said, we're actually humanizing a little bit more the people behind the blog and why we all blog, and that kind of inspiration. And so I like talking to other bloggers, and not just send you questions that you fill out and you email back to me, actually talking to other bloggers and hearing their views or what they think works best. And of course, that helps everybody learn more and what we're setting out to do, or the whole mission or goal behind the CSI project is that. So that's what I try to do. And I agree that I think that doing the videos or anything we can do like that, I think that's where we're headed as far as blogging goes. Just using that media that we
Yeah.
can.
Well, yeah, you kind of mentioned the community aspect of blogging, and I found this to be the case at some conferences, like Alt Summit for this last year, for example. We were talking about, okay, like we need to stop holding our cards so close to the chest. We need to share with one another. We need to share how much we're charging. We need to share our experience, our ethics with each other, so that we can actually be united, because this really is like, it's becoming a career path nowadays, with advertisers reaching out to craft bloggers and bloggers of all different kinds. And I was talking, who was I talking to? I can't remember. Anyway, we were talking about how craft bloggers tend to have it the hardest, because our demographic is the type of demographic that's going to make over buy, and so it makes it harder for advertisers to come in and actually make money, because people are going to, they're much rather going to make something, as seen on SB or whatnot. And then the companies that do offer kind of DIY materials, they're only giving bloggers products, and they're not actually paying us for our time. And we, like, especially as craft bloggers, we need to stand up and say, yeah, great, like we buy supplies all the time. It's great to have free supplies, but I can't eat paint. I want to eat food, so how about you give me money and paint? And this is how much I charge for my time. And I spend this many hours on creating a tutorial, and my pictures are great. I work hard on the images, so pay me what I'm worth. And I think we as craft bloggers really need to stand up for the work that we do. It really is digested by so many people, especially with Pinterest now, that companies really do need to start taking us seriously. And instead of offering swatches of fabric, how about we do something that's a little bit more meaningful, that actually puts bread on the table. So that's a little soapbox, but
That's true, though. I totally agree. And I mean, with the CSI project, and I do think some bloggers don't want to say, how much they're getting paid necessarily. I think some bloggers just don't want to say that if they are getting paid. With the CSI project being a craft community and a competition, and I get that all the time, where companies will say, oh, well, we'll just, we want to give you products. And of course, I say, well, no, but you also, there is a fee that they have to pay to advertise on the blog, because because of what I'm providing them. I'm providing them
oh, yeah.
6 days that their logo is sitting there on my website. I'm providing them, Facebook time, tweet time, and they're getting they're on every post, and that takes time to do. And so I would tell bloggers that it's okay to say, this is what I do, and this is how much time I spend, and I would like to be compensated. I think that's okay. I think that is a business move, and I think some people just, oh, well, getting a great product is okay. I'll just do that. And that may be their decision and that may be the way they go. But if you want to move into make it into a business aspect, you have to say, this is my time that I put into it. So this is my fee. And the companies that I have worked with have all been, really good about that. They understand it. But I do know there are some companies out there that's new to them. And when a craft blogger stands up for themselves, they kind of think, oh, that's weird because I gave products to another blogger and she didn't say anything to me at all. So I
Yeah.
agree. I think that it is hard to be a craft blogger because we don't get necessarily recognized for the business aspect, of it. Um, we just kind of
Yeah.
come off as people who just like to get products and craft.
We need to look at it from a very business point of view.
Right.
You think about it. How many thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands, even millions, are spent on TV spots? TV spots that might be geared towards the right people. Tons of money. And how much does a blogger require for her time?
Right.
Seriously, in comparison, beans. Totally beans.
Yeah.
So you're worth it. You should charge it, you know? And, you've got the circulation. You work up to the circulation and that sort of thing, and you just charge what you're worth, and you don't apologize. And I've worked with a couple of companies that didn't want to pay me for my time, and they wanted free content for nothing. Basically, they wanted me to pay to get them content. And I just outright said, you'll get good content once you start paying for it.
Right.
They had a company blog, and it was the stuff that they had on their site was just really disgraceful. It was disgusting. But it was because of their model. They weren't paying for it. And and companies more and more, I think, are realizing that if they want good quality stuff, they've really got to pay for it. They want good quality advertising. They really want to target the blog market, which is really valuable. They really got to start paying. And hopefully more and more bloggers, as they stand up, that it really spreads more like wildfire, and big companies will start putting in policies within their company that there have been craft companies that I've worked with that have blogger programs specifically for bloggers and for giving bloggers what they're worth and product and money, and I think it's great. And they have certain expectations from those bloggers, and they're very upfront about it. And those partnerships are the most rewarding, and I feel more brand loyalty towards those brands, and I'm more likely to be like, hey, check this company out, even though it's not on my blog, it's just to another person. I think more brands need to create brand loyalty, and they get a lot out of, you get more out of word of mouth than just ads. I'm kind of going off on tangents here, but
Well, I think it's right.
Yeah.
And recently, I went down to the Michael's store. They flew down just a few bloggers, and I was one of them that they flew down.
I was so jealous seeing those tweets.
I know. And it was wonderful. And you know what Michael said?
Amazing.
And this is the first time I've heard this, and it came from a Michael's part of their marketing team. And this lady said to us that we treat you, craft bloggers, the same that we treat our media, our TV sponsors. And she said, we don't look at you any differently. Because you reach an audience that we can't reach on TV. You reach an audience that nobody can reach in our newspaper ads, in our TV spots. You're reaching a crowd that is loyal to you, and that's true. We have loyal followers, and that's why she said we're really, really stepping up and reaching out to the bloggers more and more and more. because we realize that you have power that no one else does. And so she said they treat us the same as TV. And that's the first time I'd ever heard that. And so I was very impressed by the Michaels marketing team that that is their angle, and they're gearing up and kind of doing that more and more and more. So I think other companies are going to step up and they're going to do the
That's
same
awesome.
thing. And I think it's just a matter of time. But I do think that we as bloggers need to stand up for ourselves. And I come from, my background is in media, television, and that's what I did for before this. And so I do come from a media
Mm-hmm.
background, and I know how the TV world works and how ad spots and all those things work. And so I typically look at my blog and I work that way. You know, I send out media kits. If
Mm-hmm.
a company inquires about me, I send them my media kit. I send them that information, and they know up front, this girl, she charges for her time and she charges for her blog. And I look at it as a business proposition. I know that there are a lot of bloggers out there that don't, and they do it because they love it, and obviously I love it too, so
And that's
otherwise I
great.
wouldn't do it. But I do think that there
Oh
is
yeah.
definitely, if you want to go that route, there's definitely, the possibilities are endless. And I think that a lot of bloggers are wanting to go that route, and they are wanting to step into that and kind of, how do I do this? I got an email earlier tonight asking me about how do I present myself to my local television station to become a a crafter on the local morning show, because I do that in my town here. I have a regular spot, and they're okay. How do I do that? So there are so many different ways that we can do that and advertise our blog, and at the same time
Mm-hmm.
get products. There's nothing wrong with that. I certainly walked
Yeah.
away from Michael's with tons, and I was so happy. But still able to get that. And I
But
do
they're
think
also valuing
though,
your time.
right. I do think though that it does come down to what we're talking about. It comes down to quality photos. And that's why I think this
Oh yeah.
photography week is going to be good for bloggers, because we need, as bloggers, we need to know how to take good quality photos, because that's going to give us, the next step. That's going to get us up, further. Um, so I hope that this week, I hope that bloggers take away how to take great photos, not to be intimidated by great photos, not to be intimidated because you're not a photographer, how to
Mm-hmm.
present yourself that way, and you don't have to go rush out and buy that very expensive camera because you saw another blogger with a very expensive camera. You don't have to do that, and but how to get those great quality photographs so that their blog might could be, go up to that next step, that next level, and you're on your way to maybe creating a business out of it, and how to go about that. So I hope this week that that's what we do, and that's kind of the goal for this week, is to answer those questions and to show people how to get those quality photographs. It's going to step them up, because you can't see this because you're calling from a phone, but I have your blog up on the screen. And so anybody who's watching this
Mm-hmm.
can see your screen right now. And so what I think as I'm looking at your blog is immediately, of course, it's a back to school sweater dress is what your post is about. And it
Mm-hmm.
says posted today, actually. But what catches my attention immediately is the photographs. They're very clean, and the backdrop is very clean, and of course, uh, and even I'm assuming this is your little girl. Um,
Yeah.
but even you can see, I mean, it's just a very clean, it's all white around her. And I think that's very clean. And I think that's what people need to notice. And of course, your blog is a good example of that, that the whole picture itself. Now, are these pictures photoshopped?
Yes, they
And
are.
and what did
Um,
you
white
do
is
in Photoshop to get this
so white is
image?
actually a pretty tricky um, color to shoot consistently. Um, so I get my white balance, and you can see, like, if you notice and like kind of look carefully, you can see there's a slight difference in white balance between posts. But to get that brightness and the color and everything to really pop, I use a technique that I actually learned from A Beautiful Mess. Are you familiar with that blog?
Yeah, yeah.
Adorable.
Yeah, I love that one.
It's one of those blogs you love to hate because everything is so beautiful, and you're like, really?
Yeah.
These girls' lives are so perfect. But I mean, it's really a beautiful blog, and there are a lot of great tutorials on there. And there's one on how to make your photos really pop, and she uses basically a couple of different filters, and it's a very I'm not one to like do tons of Photoshop actions. Like, keep it simple, don't add textures, like, it just get the information out there. But I've found that this way, like, the colors pop, but then I can also get as close to a white background as possible, and it really pops. So I do that, and then I sharpen all of my pictures just a little bit, just enough to make them pop. I feel like with web, when things are just so small, you really kind of you really have to sharpen those images to make them pop. Otherwise, you kind of lose some of those small details when your images are so small. So pretty much just so I use basically a Photoshop action I learned from A Beautiful Mess, and I sharpen my images, and I just make sure that it just looks bright. So sometimes I'm pretty, like, I use all manual with my camera settings, so I'm usually pretty good at getting the exposure just about right on, but every once in a while I have to adjust the exposure on there, kind of adjust those levels a little bit. But that's pretty much it. I mean, each photo, you know, I don't smooth out her skin. I don't use the liquify tool. I just do the very basics. I feel like it becomes fake when you have to use those. And I found if you know how to use Photoshop, you'll find that you can sometimes pick out where images have been Photoshopped. I've seen a couple of fashion blogs where they've been Photoshopped to look skinnier.
Right.
And
Yeah.
like, oh, that just ruins the blog for me. I don't know if I can read it anymore, because this girl apparently isn't comfortable with her own body, and, you know, expects us to all think that she's, you know, 95 pounds. And so what? There's a little bulge here or bulge there. Like, so what? Like, that's what happens to all of us. And I would actually appreciate her blog more if I saw those imperfections. So anyway, like, being as professional as you possibly can, making those photos pop as much as they can, but still being realistic. You know, if that makes sense.
Right. Right.
Don't, like, some of the vignetting, I don't do the vignetting. I, you know, just straight out of camera, and then maybe add a couple things to make it pop. Exposure,
Right.
sharpness, that sort of thing. I was going to mention, when it comes to cameras, and this is for somebody who's starting out blogging and is wondering if it's really the right direction to go and wants to really dive into the business aspect of blogging. And I mean, who has huge dollars to just like dump into blogging? Nobody really does. You
Right.
start blogging with no budget, and then as you get bigger, you can invest in things. You know, if you can invest in a nice camera, it cuts a lot of time off of your post-editing process, and it helps you cheat the light better, because the camera that I have, the ISO goes up to 27,000. It can pretty much shoot in pitch black, and I don't have to have a flash, and I can just hold it. I don't have to have a tripod. It's pretty amazing. But And then, the lens that I have, it goes down to like f-stop 1.8. If you're familiar with that, it lets in tons of light. So I can really cheat the light with that. That gives me a lot more flexibility. And then I've used a white balance lens cap to automatically give me the same white balance. And, those things are expensive, but I've been able to justify them because of the time that I put into my blog, and that my blog is at a point where investing into it makes sense.
Right.
So, I mean, if I would have never purchased these things the first year of my blog, ever, because you can easily manage with what you have, and
Right.
you just have to be creative and be aware of your surroundings. But as you get more invested, then it's nice to get the better tech, because it saves you time. The whole like photographing and post-editing process really takes me minutes now instead of hours that it used to, because I'm not adding in the blur. I'm not really changing a whole lot about the images. I'm just popping and I'm done. And I have just little set actions where just minute out and done. So,
Right.
yeah.
So I
It's
think
nice to
that's
invest in those nice things, but you've got to be able to justify it.
right.
You have to.
Right, and I think that's the best advice to give. I think there's so many new bloggers, or maybe bloggers that have been doing it for a while, but they want to take it to the next level, and I think that's good advice, is that you can take it to the next level, and you can get these nice cameras. And I have a nice camera. I'm not the photographer. My husband is, and he actually does it for hobbies, so we have all this stuff, and believe me, I don't know what all this stuff means. I mean, I really don't. We have lights like you wouldn't believe. I don't know what they do. I don't know why.
Great.
But I know that it's really great to have a husband that knows all of that. But he has, of course, taught me some things, so I do get by on the limited knowledge that I have. But I don't think that you have to go out and, buy all that stuff. But at some point, like you're saying, it is good to invest into your blog. And especially when you start to realize that it's kind of taking off and that you do have that potential to go even further, I do think that you can, at that point, start getting a nicer camera and go from there. I think that is good advice. But of course, I want everybody, if you have a passion for blogging, craft blogging, or whatever that may be, to go ahead and pursue it, because if it's a passion of yours, I know so many craft bloggers start out, and I can because I started out, I truly I love to craft, and I'm crafting, why not craft blog? So I know that that's probably a lot of people's story is, well, I started this way, and why not share? Which is where the CSI project came from.
Yeah.
But so I know that a lot of people, they may just want to craft blog, and but if you want to take it to that next level, and I do think that paying attention to your photos and doing those little things, and they truly are, small things, but paying attention to the details, I think that does pay off. And I think that it does make the blogs more enjoyable, like you were saying before. When you have the right image size, it doesn't take long to load. And knowing those things, I think those are details that people need to know and
absolutely
pay attention to. And that's why I think you pointed out some great things and great pointers, because people need to hear that, and they need to know what to do. And of course, there is on your blog, there is a contact form. So if anybody, I guess, had a question, they could always contact you. Maybe like what kind of camera you use, because there may be some people, oh, what kind of camera does she have? I want to know, or whatever. Definitely contact you on the blog. And the blog is actually called I Still Love You, but the but that's not the .com. It's
no.
yeah.
It's melissaesplin.com.
Melissa
It's
Esplin.
sad. As much as I want IStillLoveYou.com, it's like $10,000. And again, like, I'm not at that point where I could actually consider investing $10,000 in
Right. No.
So we're working around it, and I'm actually working on a restructuring and a rebrand. But yeah, it's a pity. If you can get your URL, get it now.
I agree with you on that one. I totally agree because I know that is hard, and I know some people struggle. You're right. Yeah, because you do kind of come up, against that. But I just wanted to make sure that everybody listening knows exactly how to find you. But they obviously, if they're seeing your screen. But it is I Still Love You, the name of the blog, and kind of tell us what your favorite thing to blog about is, or what we can find on your blog.
Mm-hmm. So the name behind the blog, it kind of came about. I had just had Penelope, and a lot of my friends had just had kids, and their blogs all of a sudden turned from adventure journaling blogs to this really strange, annoying version of a mom blog, where they're posting 30 images of their child in pretty much the same pose. And I was like, I feel like I need to post about Penelope because my parents and my in-laws were in a different state. And so I started posting really only about Penelope, and I hated it because I'm sitting around all day changing dirty diapers and cleaning up after, like, messy food, and then I go online, and all it is dirty diapers and messy food. Like, I couldn't get a break. And, I graduated in painting and drawing with a BFA, and I wasn't using it. And I just thought, okay, I am done. Like, this blog is my space. It is geared towards all the things that I still love and still do, even though I am really busy being a mom. And, it's kind of like, it really it started out just because I needed something to motivate me to craft and to do something creative and artistic. And it's kind of grown into more than that, where I share my ideas with others and hopefully motivate other people to, invite creativity back into their lives. So I really do a variety of things. I love to work with leather, with jewelry, and that sort of thing. And a lot of the things that I do aren't, they're kind of not really edgy, but not really super feminine sometimes. It's just kind of, they're different. I'm not saying that I'm the only person that does what I do, but I'm not. But, and then I love taking clothes. I'm super cheap. I love taking clothes from thrift shops and making them either fit me right or into something completely different. So I like to do refashions, like Penelope's little sweater dress.
Yeah, which is so cute.
And right now, we just moved into a new house. We bought our first house. Yay! Yeah. We've moved so many times over the last 6 years. So my goal now is to decorate and organize my house. And so I started this a series called the Zero Budget Project, where I go through and feature each room before and after and try to organize and decorate each room with as little money as possible, as close to zero as possible. And I think 2 of the rooms were zero. And the other 2 rooms were like $50 or $30. So I've really been able to decorate the house on the cheap. I mean, we're sort of house poor right now. Buying a house is expensive, but that's been really rewarding. It's kind of it's motivated me to really make this house mine and get it feeling homey fast. Because I mean, our last house we lived in for 7 months, and I didn't put really a single thing in the walls. I put a couple of pieces up, but that was it. And it never felt like home. And so that's the goal, is to get that artwork out of those closets, dust them off, and put them on the walls,
Right.
and just create a very inviting artistic space. So that's pretty much what you can find in a nutshell on my blog.
Right, yeah, and of course on the screen I have your zero budget project on here so everybody can see what you're talking about and how you are. I guess this is probably your studio, your craft room that I'm
I've
looking
got
at.
two. I feel a little greedy, but I have 2 rooms. I've got my studio, and then I have my office, which is really nice to have those 2 rooms just to myself.
I know, isn't it? I know. I'm the same way. Um, I have a craft room, and I let of course, it's not just the kids go in there, of course, and they have their own little drawers, and they know. But I like having my own space, and it is very, very nice. I have to say, I don't know what I would do. Um, somebody had asked one time if my husband and I were going to have more kids, and he said, "Are you kidding? She's not going to give up her craft room." Um, and I like,
Yeah.
would you tell people the real reason why we're not having kids? Because that makes me sound so terrible. But that's not the reason. He just tells people that. But I think 4 is plenty.
Yeah.
That's kind of my reasoning behind it. But um,
4 is fantastic, yeah.
4 yeah. And sometimes I think to myself, why would anybody ask if there's more? Because don't you see? I mean, it's craziness. Um, and the oldest is a freshman in college. Why would I do that? But anyway,
What?
I think it's funny. I definitely love my space. I love my craft space. I love having that, and I think it just helps us organize better when we have our that space. And as crafters, I think we definitely need that, and especially for blogging and that kind of thing, you kind of need to be organized and know what you're doing and have that all in one spot. Although sometimes you cannot see the floor in the craft room. Sometimes you walk in there and it's a disaster. But um, you know, I know where everything is, but nobody else
Yeah.
might.
Oh, I love having this space. And a couple of years ago, we lived in just south of San Francisco. This was when Penelope was born. And we were in just a 1-bedroom apartment. Penelope slept in the closet. We were lucky enough to have an attached garage to our apartment. And that's where I was able to kind of set up camp and craft. And, looking back at that, I was able to make a lot of creative stuff. And, as great and as inviting as a studio is, not everybody can have it.
Right.
And, kind of going back to the photography stuff and the tools for beginners, you don't have to have a designated craft studio in order to have a craft blog.
No.
But it's really, really awesome to have one.
It is. Yeah, you're right though. You don't have to have that space. I have friends that just have a little craft nook, you don't have to have that, but it is really, really nice. And sometimes you have to share it with kids, but that's fine because, you're doing the right thing and not,
Well,
take.
kids need to be creative too.
Yeah, yeah, and I do. I encourage, children to be crafty too, and I share that. And even, I mean, with other kids, um, I share it with friends' kids, and the neighbor kids, and I mean, we can share our crafting with whoever. It doesn't even have to be our own children. Obviously, we can share with whoever, and I think that's great. And having a space to do that in, even better. And I'm not, although I do tend to just bring it down and craft where the rest of the family is, and my husband says, "Oh, you're bringing it all down here." So, but I think no matter where you're at, you don't have to have that to have a craft blog. You don't have to have the fanciest camera.
But I think that's so great. That's was so great about the craft community, is that we can encourage each other and say, you don't have to have this, even though so and so has this. You don't have to have that. And I think sometimes, even in the craft world, we tend to look at certain crafters, bloggers, and we tend to think, oh, I can't be like her. She has this many followers, or she, I just can't be like her. She's a big blogger. And I think that we need to get away from that and realize that we can all work together and learn from one another, and it's not a competition at all. It's not a competition at all. And I think that's what we need to come across. And I hope that every week, I hope that people are learning that from the CSI project. And that's why I think Photography Week is going to be a good week, so that we can get that point across, that you don't have to have, even if you admire a certain blogger and you know she has a certain camera, you don't have to have that. You don't have to. If you can encourage people to, just take your own path. And I believe blogging is your own path. You've got to make your own way. You can't, follow someone else.
Don't pretend to be another blogger. Like,
right.
Be yourself. And I mean, the thing is, no one will respect you if you're not blogging from yourself. If you're blogging to be exactly like A Beautiful Mess or Design Sponge or whatever, no one's gonna give you a second glance. But if you're blogging as yourself and doing things for yourself and being like a genuine person, it doesn't matter if the following is big or small. So what if it's small? It's, these people are coming to, because they like you, they like your point of view. And ultimately, isn't the goal just to create a community? I mean, community is so important. I feel like a lot of, towns and cities don't necessarily offer that, just because of the day and age that we're in. And so it's nice to be able to go online and have these safe places where we can bounce ideas off of each other, and we can inspire one another and be inspired by each other. And it's not a competition. It's not a race. It's really a nurturing environment that we go to, on a daily basis or a regular basis.
Right.
And we just need to promote that.
I think so too. And that's why I, of course, appreciate you talking to me about this. And I think that people can definitely now go to your blog, and they kind of get to, from this, they'll get to know you, and to know that that's your point of view. And it's very encouraging to hear that. And I think people need to hear this. So I'm really glad that you brought that up, and that point of view, because I think people need to hear that it's okay to be yourself. It's okay if your house is completely messy and dinner has not been made, and your kids are just making you want to pull out your hair. All of those things are okay. And I think that when we look at blogs like A Beautiful Mess or whatever, I think we don't think that their lives are like that. And so we think, oh, well, right now I'm going to pull out my hair because my kid's this or whatever. Well, it's probably the same way too. And I think that goes with being authentic. And in your house, or we may look at other, as you are decorating your new home, you may look at other bloggers and say, oh, she already has it all together. How am I going to do that? And but knowing that she didn't start out that way, that it didn't just happen overnight. And I think that's good to think about. And when we are more authentic, and I really appreciated recently on my Facebook page, I talk about my oldest going off to college, and how that is, it's a difficult thing. And I really appreciated that because I posted on my Facebook page that, okay, he's there, he's in the dorm, and I am feeling completely helpless. Like there's something I should be doing for him. And another craft blogger put on there, well, this is just, he's fine, and I hope he doesn't send you a text like my daughter did. And she shared an experience that her daughter sent her this text, I hate it here. And it made her more authentic and real. And she shared a part of her life, and I can relate to it as I'm going through the same thing. And I think that's wonderful. I think, and Facebook's another way to do that, not just our blogs, but our Facebook pages. And when we share a part of our lives, people can connect with that. And she encouraged me that day to say, I know you feel helpless, but this is exactly where he needs to be. And he's doing the right thing. And this is a hard thing, but just focus on the good things. And, that you're super proud of him and that sort of thing. And I think that, as craft bloggers, it doesn't have to be just about crafts. It is obviously our lives are connected. We probably all have these passions for crafting, and we know that. But, when you get to know people, you realize that you're not that different, and you are kind of going through the same things, or somebody's been through it before you have. And obviously, you have a smaller child, so you can kind of, somebody's been through it, somebody has done what you're doing. And it's really cool how we can come together and not just talk about crafts, but reach out to one another, encourage one another, like this lady did me. And I did not get that text, I hate it here. So that is a wonderful thing. So that was not my experience, although we have gotten the information back that we've gotten is, wow, I haven't had to study this hard ever in high school. Wow, this is really a lot. So, which is kind of good because, at least I know he's studying and he's being challenged. So, so I really appreciate the fact that you brought that out, and we can humanize our blogs, and we're not just a machine behind the website. We're not. We are real people, and we're going through things, and we're living life. We're decorating our homes, making clothes for our kids, whatever we're doing it. And I think that's why craft blogging can be a conversation. And that's what I'm trying to do. And obviously you have helped the community, and now my followers can find you, and I do encourage them that they should, of course, go over to your blog and, and reach out to you and, kind of ask you questions if they need to, but also now they've kind of got to know you, they can reach out to you and follow what you're doing, of course. And this week is all about photography and how to, and we're going to have tutorials every day on how to make good blog photos, but also different techniques and as different techniques, not just for blogs, but for your everyday life when you're taking photos. I have a couple of people that are going to be talking about that. So it should be a really good week. It's a little bit different but like I said, it doesn't have to be just about crafts. I encourage that crafting is a huge part of it, but it doesn't have to be about that. And photography is one of those things. And so of course, the website is melissaesplin.com, and people can see that. And it is I Still Love You. And of course, I hope people come over to see you. And after they hear this, and we will have it up, of course, on the blog. So and your link will be on the blog, so people can they know where to find you, and they can, of course, pick your brain if they need to. But I don't know, but
always
kind of because we kind of talked about a lot of different things when it comes to blogging. So I encourage people to ask questions. I'll answer questions, and I know you will too. As we go about this blog journey, because it really is a journey, and it really is a process. So I hope nobody feels discouraged, and if they do feel discouraged, reach out to other bloggers and ask why and talk about it, because if this really is your passion, then don't give up on it. And of course, that's what the CSI project is all about. So
Yeah.
I definitely thank you for taking the time out to talk to me all about blogging and this world, this crazy world that we call blogging.